Yeah, found it. I mean, we have a meeting, that's like 2 or 3 meetings ago.
Oh, found it.
What's that right there? Looks like a... Back to my question. What's
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Wednesday, December 5th session of the Cape Cod Regional Government Assembly of Delegates. I'll call this meeting to order, and I will start with a moment of silence to honor our troops who have died in service to our country and all those serving our country in the armed forces. Thank you, and now we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk will call the roll.
Richard Anderson.
Here.
Cheryl Andrews. Here. Ronald Bergstrom.
Here.
Leo Kukunis.
Here.
Christopher Kanega.
Here.
James Killian.
Here.
Marcia King. Here. Teresa Martin. Here. Deborah McCutcheon. Here. Spiro Mitrakostas.
Here.
John Ullman.
Here.
Paul Pilcher. Patrick Princey. Anthony Scalise.
Here.
Julia Taylor. Here. Mr. Speaker, we have a quorum present with 77.81% of the delegates present, 22.19% absent.
Thank you. You should have received a copy of the calendar of business. Do I need a motion to approve the calendar?
Motion to approve the calendar of business for today.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And now you should also have a copy of the Journal of November 7, 2012. Are there any additions or corrections to the journal?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker, on page 14, after Mr. Kukunis asked the question, Deputy Speaker Anderson did not answer his question. It was Speaker Bergstrom.
Okay. We'll make a motion to, I guess,
Yeah, to amend it.
amend. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the amended journal is now on the table. Any other additions? Nope. Okay, I need a motion.
Motion to approve the amended journal of last annual year.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, we have it. Our next agenda item is communications from the Board of Regional Commissioners, and their silence is deafening, so we're going to have to move to agenda item number 9. Which is an overview from Barnstable County Regional Emergency Planning Coordinator, Sean O'Brien, regarding the incident management team deployment in New York for Hurricane Sandy.
Okay.
Please identify yourself.
I'm Sean O'Brien, and I'm
Okay.
the coordinator of the Barnstable County Regional Emergency Planning
Welcome.
Committee. Well, thank you. We were just kind of setting things up. We had a PowerPoint presentation ready for you. Just to show you a few of the pictures of what we saw in New York. Back about, we went on November 8th. The Barnstable County Regional Emergency Planning Committee's incident management team was sent to New York to assist with the response to Superstorm Sandy. Say that 5 times fast. And we were down there to assist them with their response. And so what we had done was gone in, helped out with some of the a logistical staging area that was there. We also helped to set up some regional fueling stations and things of that sort. So what I'd like to do is maybe hand it over to Mark Foley, who served as our incident commander for the event. We were down there for 2 weeks. And it was really a great opportunity to help, but also it really showed us what can happen when a major storm affects a region. And I think the thing I came back here with was all that storm had to be was 100 miles north, and we would have seen some significant damage here in Barnstable County. And it's really got us thinking about some additional emergency planning that we need to think about with our communities and with our South Coast and even our areas along the bay as well. is to look and see what they, with some of the planning that needs to be done there. Because when you see an entire house moved away from a foundation and the chimney's still there, it really can show you the amount of force that the ocean water has. And we went down to an area called Breezy Point, and we were able to see that in fact. And as Mark speaks, I'll get the PowerPoint presentation set up, and we can show you a picture of that. Mark.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. Mark Foley. Yep. Good. Yep. Mark Foley, Deputy Director of the Fire Academy and Deputy Fire Chief in Eastham. And as Sean said, I coordinate the Incident Management Team, which is a subcommittee under the REPC right now as it stands. The Incident Management Team is comprised of about 20 individuals right now that are highly specially trained and skilled in incident management. The team's capability is to go out to any incident, more or less long duration incidents, and help out the local resources with backfill in these management positions from operations, finance, logistics, and command positions also. In this case, what happens is the state of New York puts out an EMAC request. That's an emergency mutual aid request to the rest of the country that they need particular resources. So they requested what's known as a Type 3 incident management team is what we reflect. So we responded to the request through the state of Massachusetts back to the state of New York to assist with the city of New York. So it was quite a complicated political little arrangement there, but we got through the red tape and we're deployed, as Sean said, on the incident. The deployment lasts for 14 days typically. We need to be self-sustaining during that time. We were originally mandated a mission to go to work out an EOC, an Emergency Operations Center in Suffolk County. As we were traveling down, they changed our mission to create a couple of fueling stations, one on Staten Island and one on Orchard Beach in the upper end of the Bronx. We did that for the first couple of days. As you can well be aware, the conditions down there were not good. There weren't any hotel rooms, weren't any places to eat, weren't any places to sustain yourself for the normal folks, not to mention the responders that were going there also. So, as it was, the training ship Kennedy was deployed as a federal asset during the event, and they were berthed in Staten Island. So we made a few phone calls and were able to get logistics set up so that we had berthing on the Kennedy for the first couple of nights, which was very good for us. Good accommodations. It beat a concrete floor in the bottom of a courthouse basement or something like that. So that was great. We then got mission assigned to a logistics staging area that was set up at Citi Field, which is the site of the old Shea Stadium where the Mets played. They had an arrangement that had already been in place with the city as a logistics staging area just to supply light towers, generators, and pumps of all sizes, kinds, and types. So that was our mission. A team from Ohio had been mission deployed there a couple of days earlier and got the logistics staging area up and running. So they had created the base for us to come in and assist them. And that's what we did for the 14-day deployment while we were down there. So 24/7, the team was basically managing about $50–60 million worth of equipment that was being deployed out of the staging area, used in the city for infrastructure, critical infrastructure, and recovery, and then would be shipped back into the staging area and then reassigned to a different area. So it's all about tracking costs and resources was our mission down there. And working with the city of New York, their Office of Emergency Management, and their logistics section to us. While we were there, the Ohio team transitioned out, and Phoenix Type 2 team came in to transition in. So we were kind of the in-between team on location, which worked out great because we got to work with both teams. We transitioned into one and out with the other. And they were continuing to work after we left. The San Diego team was supposed to go in and replace them. I'm not quite sure how that all flushed out, but costs were starting to get a little bit high. After 14 days, the federal government was no longer covering the full reimbursement costs, so the city was getting a little itchy about the 75-25% split after the 14 days. So they were trying to do everything they could to contain costs. So they may have gone another route. But the assets, just those assets that they had in the field were worth millions and millions of dollars. And tracking them and recovering them in good fashion, in good order, is an important mission for the city. And of course, they didn't have the resources to do that. That's why they call in these teams from around the country to manage that particular piece for them, as well as other things. They did have teams that were in the Emergency Operations Center. There were teams up and down Long Island and Suffolk County, and certainly in New Jersey. We didn't even speak about New Jersey, but New Jersey was affected severely also. And as Sean said, the devastation down there is particularly bad. And when you look at especially the area of Breezy Point, Rockaway, Howard Beach, that topography is exactly the same topography that we have here on the Cape. Barrier Beach with dense coastal year-round homes now, seasonal homes, thing of the past down there. So when you see the devastation, you just have to think about a couple of 100 miles north, we would have been in the same predicament as they were, and are still today. They've pretty much lost track of them in the news lately. However, they are in still full devastation in those places that got impacted down there. There's still upwards of 50,000 people that don't have a home to go back to, from a single-family home to the projects. The projects and the tenements that were destroyed, their infrastructure is all in the basements, which were totally flooded out, their boilers, their electrical systems. So they had temporary power, and some of them have temporary heat and hot water through temporary boilers, but that's not going to sustain for very long, especially through the winter months. So the city and the state are trying to come up with plans to deal with the displaced population down there. It's going to be a very difficult task for them to deal with. The latest numbers I heard were $30 billion for the New York damage and $36 billion for the New Jersey damage. So you can see the numbers are climbing astronomically, going to far exceed probably the Katrina numbers before we're over and done with. And the population displacement is going to far exceed the Katrina numbers also. So we'll see if we have some.
We're almost there. It's not a great advertisement for Dell right now.
Would entertain any questions that you have for us. We appreciate
Any of the delegates have any questions, Dick?
Yeah, how many people are on these teams that you're sending down there?
Well,
and how many people did you dispatch out from the areas that you were concerned with?
Our team is, well, we sent 9 members from our team went down. When we were requested, it was for a short team, which is a 10 to 15 person team. There's also an incident management team in the northwest portion of Massachusetts in Franklin County. So they were available, so they dispatched 6 and basically attached to us. So we had a 15 person team that went down to manage the incident. And as I said, it's a 24/7 operation, so basically the team gets split in 2 for 12-hour cycles, which turn into 14 and 15-hour cycles by the time you debrief and overlap with the other oncoming shifts. So continuous for the whole 14-day deployment. So the folks who were working didn't get to leave the mission assignment very often. We did get an opportunity to send the folks out into the field so they could see what their work was accomplishing out in the field, going to see the generators and the pumps and the light towers in place and working, and to see the devastated areas also, so they could get a feel for the mission that they were assigned to.
Julie?
How have you all, you said there were 20 of you that have been trained. What would the training consist of? What are you trying to get yourself to be able to do in these circumstances?
Sure. And as I said, it's specialty training. It's position-specific training that's sanctioned by the federal government. After 9/11, NIMS and ICS became the national standard, and as part of that, incident management became a specialty item, and specialty training evolved from that. We were lucky to be one of the first ones involved with team training down here on the Cape about 6 or 7 years ago now, to establish a baseline for a team. And we've continued that training as we've gone on. It is time consuming, it's quite a path. It's almost a degree path if you looked at it on a curriculum basis. So the folks who've stuck with it and done the training, a lot of it on their own time and dime also, I might add, have been tremendous. And it's multidiscipline, multi-hazard, so it's not just police and fire. Obviously we have folks from health, we have folks from industry, we have police, fire, and everybody else involved also. It's an all-hazard incident management team that's capable of providing incident management to to help any local resource.
Let me ask you a question. I'm curious as to, I mean, this happened all of a sudden. Next thing you know, you have people coming from here, and I imagine from elsewhere, and they've got to know what they're going to do when they get there.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to be in charge.
Sure.
I just wondered how you saw that playing out, and whether or not, if the shoe was on the other foot, if it happened here, and you had to call in emergency management teams from other areas, who would be the point person to make sure that when they get here, they have jobs and stuff?
Right. Well, and that's the beauty of having a national standard system. We worked with teams from Ohio and Phoenix, and we never met these folks before in our lives, but we walked in, transitioned with each other because we play under the same playbook and the same rules and the same everything, same language. We were able to transition with each other in less than half a day. And they understood we understood their process, we could understand what they were doing, and it doesn't take very long to transition in and out. As far as the authority goes, that does become a question, and when an incident team comes in, they ask for a written delegation of authority from the jurisdiction having the authority, which in this case was the City of New York. As you can imagine, the City of New York politically isn't it probably as easy to deal with as the county or the town or the city locally here. Just for example, there's 118 deputy mayors in the City of New York. So if you need something signed, you have to go hunting for the person who's going to sign it.
I'm a native New Yorker now.
There you go. And that doesn't include all of the precinct captains and all of the other political.
So if it happened here, let's say we had a storm or something,
Certainly.
you guys would be basically the people who would organize the response.
Well, we
Yes.
certainly bring in help with the response, but the local authority still is responsible, and they would request it. And in our case, that request would go to the state, and then the state would ask for those assets just as New York State did.
And in a sense, we kind of do that now. Whenever there's a storm, we open up a multi-agency coordination center, and that's staffed by this incident management team. So that team actually supports Barnstable County quite often. Before we went to New York, a lot of the folks on the team actually had done quite a few hours in the multi-agency coordination center at Otis, just handling our own issues with Sandy before we left to go down to New York.
Right. Well, I guess we're ready to see what the pictures are.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah, and this is just a little bit of background. We are hosted by the Barnstable County Regional Emergency Planning Committee. And as Mark mentioned, we have folks from all aspects. We have public works, we have emergency management, police, fire, and some folks from industry as well. So, it's having all of these organizations work together is the key to the success of this organization. And we've been actually the only active team in Massachusetts. There's a team in Western Mass now, but we were probably going 4 years on our own for a little while. We really jumped into this concept here in Barnstable County, and the main reason is, if those bridges go, there's nobody else. We're there to support ourselves until help arrives, and that's kind of why we bought into this concept. Our coordinator is Deputy Foley, as you've met, and our deputy coordinator is Chief Dan Silverman out of the town of Wellfleet. And as Mark mentioned, we work with ICS-based disasters, and we use ICS-based incident management services for disasters, emergencies, and planned events. Mark gave you a quick summary of this. We first arrived in New York City on November 8th, and we first set up a fueling depot in the Bronx, and then we went on to Citi Field. And that was our home for about 2 weeks, was Citi Field. Where the Mets play. Brought back, it's a new field. They still have the bases from Shea Stadium, and brought back a lot of bad memories from the 1986 World Series. But that's where we were, and we lived in the umpire's lounge, locker room, for about 10 days. This is the LSA. This is the logistical staging area. This area up in front where you see all the green and the dark green pumps and everything, those are actually were staged. Those are 6-inch pumps or greater. In some cases, they're probably almost 12-inch pumps. And this site was to provide services, whether it be generators, pumps, light towers, to all of New York. So New York City. And so it was primarily, if you went to Manhattan and you saw a generator, chances are it came out of this facility here, and it probably early on went through the Ohio team, and then later on went through the Barnstable County team that was there. besides having all of the generators and all that equipment, all those logistics, we also had all of the Con Edison crews and contract crews based out of this area as well. So at one point, there were about 400
pieces of equipment and 900 linemen from mutual aid for the Con Edison piece of the response.
If you notice the blue trucks behind, those are from PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric. Those were actually shipped into the city from California. They demoed, they left right around the same time we did, maybe a few days before, and all those vehicles were being shipped back to California. And it's kind of a similar thing that happens here. For Sandy, we had about 90 crews on standby. If anybody drove by the Holiday Inn in Hyannis right before Sandy came in here in Barnstable County, we had about 90 crews on standby to help keep our power moving with NSTAR. This kind of served as our command post. You can see the Barnstable County seal prominently displayed on the back of that box truck back there. We were based out of a Connex box. But we also needed some help. And one of the things that we realized early on was communications. We needed to make sure we had a little bit of help with communications, and for us to be able to talk amongst each other, but also for us to be able to talk amongst all of the agencies that were working in this facility. So what we did was we put in a request, and Mark, if you want to speak a little bit about that, to the Fire Marshal's office to come down and provide their ISU.
One of the critical events that happened, as Sean says, communications. This incident support unit out of the Fire Marshal's office in this state has 3 of them to support local incidents. If there's a large incident, large multi-day incident, they can come down and either bolster communications or add on to their communications. As you said down there, when you hear about all the after-action reports all over the country, communications is the #1 downfall, #1 failure. What we were able to do by bringing this unit down was turning on the federal ITAC channels, which meant that the radios from Phoenix, Ohio, Barnstable, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut could all talk together on the same frequency seamlessly with no fuss or muss. And that's what this unit was able to do for us. And it was a great help. We went through the Fire Marshal's office. It's actually the first time that a state asset like this has ever left the state. But he saw the need, recognized the need, and was willing to help, and was generous enough to send not only the truck, but the men to support the truck through the entire mission. And it really played an important role in that communications gap, as well as gave us some decent quarters to work out of in the field in the LSA.
And just, the reason why we took this picture, it's very rare that you will ever see a fire vehicle from Phoenix, Arizona, next to a fire vehicle from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So we just felt it was kind of an odd, a rare picture to take.
How experienced were Phoenix firemen in floods? That's the thing.
That's the thing about the incident management system. It's not to be tactically responding to the incident. It's to manage the incident. I'll give you one perfect example about how an incident management team grew. When the Columbia shell blew up, it spread itself basically from California, dropped pieces as far as California to Florida. And the investigation took on this multi-state, multi-jurisdictional investigation, and they didn't quite know how to get their hands around it. They took incident management teams who in those days ran wildfires and said, we need you to manage this recovery incident. And that's exactly what they did. And as it turned out, they recovered some ungodly number, like 85% of the wreckage from Columbia, with a fire incident management team to manage it. And that's what the incident management team is all about, managing the incident, not doing tactics and strategy, but managing the personnel, managing the resources, managing the finances, and that's the important goal of the incident management team. Good question.
This is when we, as Mark had mentioned, we had a chance to go down to Rockaway and to see some of the damage that occurred. A lot of these projects here, these apartments, where the floodwaters went in and pretty much destroyed their electrical system and their heating system as well. So this is actually probably a 1,400 kilowatt generator that's set up to support one of these buildings, and that generator came through this through the City Field LSA. So that came in. What we also saw was some very interesting electrical services being provided. because the seawater went into these basements, that's actually, they changed a lot of the electrical service to the roof, and this is another one of the apartment buildings in Rockaway. And as a temporary measure, what they were able to do was they were able to lower the power lines down back through into the basement and to bring that building back online with power for its residents. There were a mix of buildings with power and without power in Rockaway. I think what was very interesting to see, though, was the way the city of New York mobilized. On almost every corner you saw a police officer or somebody in a yellow coat and a hat. And what they did was they actually moved a lot of their folks from the traffic division down there, just to kind of make sure that folks knew there was a presence and there was security in the area. And it assisted with preventing looting and things of that sort. This picture is also Rockaway, and it's, I would love to have been able to put a map with it, but this is about 10 blocks from the beach. And if you look in the middle of the road, that's all beach sand. That's how far the tide had gone up and in. If you looked around Rockaway, you would see fields or cars along the street, and then parking lots just filled with vehicles that were destroyed as a part of the storm. I would definitely be looking around down Carfax if you're looking for a new car in the next few years, because there are going to be a lot of damaged cars, and that was one of the things that happened in Katrina as well. It was a lot of damaged things came out and were resold. This is down in the Breezy Point area. This is a little spit of land that's kind of at the end of that Rockaway Point. If you look in the front, you can actually see where the foundation was for that house, those stilts. And that's the house behind it, the white one with the windows that are blown out. That was moved, so that was moved from the water that had come in, that storm surge. I think the estimates were that there were 3 or 4 feet of water at least across most of Breezy Point, because on one side you had the Atlantic, and on the back side you had Jamaica Bay. And so there was estimates of 3 to 4 feet of water right across that whole spit of land. And there were probably 2,000 houses in there. 200 of them were lost to fire. About 150 to 200, I think, was the number I had. And this was the result of the fire. You can see it was kind of a moonscape. These were all homes that were destroyed. Many of you may have seen on the news the fire at Breezy Point. And these were all of the homes that were kind of lost. And sometimes you could recognize, what was left of a fridge or a dishwasher or something like that, or a bike. And you can actually see the vinyl siding on the house behind that was melted. So there were about 150 homes in there that were destroyed. This is of a house that was moved, and it actually had landed right next to that White House. As we were walking and taking the tour, one of the this may have made it out. A photo of this may have made it out to the AP. They were looking for houses being torn down, and we actually had told them this was one that they might want to see. If you look, you can see a dresser right next to that white pipe, and all of the drawers were still filled with these folks' clothes, their personal items. They literally lost everything, and this house is being torn down, whether it's rebuilt or not, I think a lot of that is going to determine federal land, insurance, things of that sort. But just thought it was an interesting picture being this excavator taking the house down. This one here is actually a house moved, and you can see it was pushed away from its foundation, and you can see the chimney and where the chimney used to be.
It's actually pushed back. It's a difficult angle here, but it's back about 25 feet from where the original foundation was. The other thing to notice in the photos is this is all surge damage. There's not a shingle missing on any of these houses. There is no wind damage here at all. The hurricane wind was north. The surge flood damage was all right here. None of this was wind damage.
This storm moved a lot of water, and this is kind of the proof of that. It was just a picture. It just says it's a picture shows 1,000 words, and this is what it did. This is of another house that was moved off of its foundation. But you could also still see where the dishes are in the, this is a little tough, I can see it better on the computer. But you can see the chandelier in the middle, and behind are some dishes. And they're still in the china cabinets and things. Folks were let back into the area, and if they were allowed into the building, there was usually a color coding as to whether the building was allowed access or limited access or actually condemned. If there was a red page or a red permit on that building was condemned and people didn't necessarily have access to it. And that's our team. And there we are in Citi Field. You can see Jeff Stranger, Mark Foley, Teresa Montani, who's with the Braintree Fire Department but has Cape Cod roots. We have Josh Nybro, who's with the Department of Conservation and Recreation. Mike Walker, who's a retired Chatham Police captain. You'll see myself, and also Chief Silverman from Wellfleet. Bob Brown, or Buster Brown as he's better known as. Buster is a deputy chief with the Dennis Fire Department, and then we have Kevin Long, who's with the Mashpee Fire Department, that went down as this team. We also had the folks from Western Mass with us as well. So we figured we'd just kind of show you what we saw and tell you a little bit about what we did.
Well, thank you. So, do we have any more questions on this? Anyone? John?
Yeah, so Sean, you just mentioned that you learned some things from this, which were they both preventative and damage control?
Yeah, I think number one, we've done the right thing, moving forward with our regional sheltering program. I think looking at dealing with high capacity shelters and having everybody work together on the shelters, I think could have benefited and been more of a benefit to the city of New York. I think they had some sheltering issues as a part of it, and I think we've moved in the right direction. I also think we really need to start looking a little bit at our coastal areas and just get an idea as to what areas may be vulnerable than others. You know, if you look along the South Coast and just what facilities may be in those areas, and start looking at least at some more evacuation planning in those areas, and looking at routes that may take them take folks who live in those areas right to the shelter. I think additionally, what's going to be really important is early information on the storms. And I think in general we do a pretty good job of that, is getting that information out fairly quickly. We have a really good public information officer in Kevin Morley. But I think getting that information out to the public and to the tourists is going to be really important should we face a storm like this. And also making sure they know the evacuation routes. They know how to get to the shelter, what the shelters can do. Because our shelters are a little bit more unique than what most areas offer. We can take pets in most of our shelters. We have a medical component to most of those shelters. So I think advertising is going to be really important as well. So I think re-looking at a lot of our coastal areas though is going to be it should be an important thing, and looking at what the effects of a 50 or 100-year storm. If I had to guess, Sandy was a 100-year storm, but who knows? And we've been saying it for years, and so we haven't had a hurricane since Bob.
And obviously from the regional approach that you folks are certainly concerned about, and we do locally, the regional sheltering program, but also the regional response program to something like this. Obviously, it's a storm this magnitude that hit the Cape, as asked before, we would be certainly needing outside resources, but we definitely have to be using regional resources within the Cape to manage the incident, at least for the first 24, 48 hours on our own. Those are things that we really seriously need to look at. And the other part that's going to really bite New York is the recovery phase. We don't pay particular attention to the recovery phase, and this is where they're getting in trouble now, not anticipating 50,000 people without homes, power generation that's not in place, the grid is off, and Lower Manhattan is still without grid power. Most of Lower Manhattan below Bowling Green, those skyscrapers are still on portable generators and portable steam and portable boilers, as well as the subway system from when we left was still out of service below Bowling Green. Those are critical infrastructures to a city of New York. You'd think that they would have significant planning to be able to recover those quickly, but they haven't been able to. So the recovery and the after effects much outlast the storm. And those are the things that planning folks need to pay attention to, because it's really where you're going to lose the most money in folks and property and such. So
I'm familiar with that area because I grew up in Manhattan, but the area you talked about, I call it Far Rockaway.
Yeah.
They had those fires. That's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, that's about as far away from the center of the city as you can get it. There's only like one bridge that goes over there, or
Right, the causeway.
goes through Broad Channel, and you're there, and so it's really remote. It's an old. I could see where fire would hit that neighborhood pretty hard if it. But I mean, I was impressed because of course, I watched it with special interest. I have relatives in New Jersey, and I was impressed that it wasn't worse than it was, considering the damage. I mean, there wasn't a lot of rioting. People seemed to. They evacuated the subways in plenty of time, even though they flooded the trains, didn't get stuck in there. And now I realize you guys were down there, and part of them, and other teams, made a big difference.
the death toll could have been much, much worse, and it's around 100 right now. But to be honest with you, there's still places that haven't been totally looked over yet. So, and there's going to be, those numbers are going to climb, probably not publicly so much, but there's certainly a lot of damage, especially when you incorporate the whole extent of it, from the islands all the way up into Canada, and as far out to the Great Lakes is where this storm was.
Well,
So
what happens is that, not to drag this on, but I mean, it's the vulnerable people who get hurt.
Right.
If you rely on medical assistance, or you're elderly, or you have, you need to, it's tough. But
just one last example, and that's while we were down there, one of our local USAT teams was also down there, Urban Search and Rescue Teams from out of Beverly and Mass. And their mission, and this was a week and a half after the hurricane, their mission was to go out and scour these projects in Rockaway and Howard Beach area. And they were going up to some projects that 10 or 12 stories high, that the debris had not been removed from the front doors yet. This is a week and a half into the incident. And those folks on the 10th and 12th floors with no elevator, no power, no water in some cases, no gas, were basically trapped up there for that length of time without any assistance. And that's a major problem. And then you see the news stories certainly about Staten Island and the effects over there. So lots of devastation.
well, anybody else? Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you for going there. I think that was good work. You might have been part of your job for the county, but you were there representing all of us, and I want to thank you for it.
Thanks.
Get up.
Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any communications from public officials? Okay, how about communications from members of the public? Okay, hearing none, the assembly will now convene. We'll begin with committee reports from the Standing Committee on Finance. Has to approve some minutes of their meeting of 11/7. John?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On November 7th, we met with Mark Zielinski for a treasurer's report at long last for fiscal year 2012. He was very thorough. He brought a different perspective to it. We had 4 members, which is well within the quorum. And he discussed many things, including the dredge account, energy funds, corporate incentives, separate loan fund. I'm sure my committee has diligently looked at these minutes, and I would ask for their approval.
I move the minutes as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay. We now move on to reconsideration of proposed ordinance 12-06. You have a copy of a letter from the Commissioner's Office explaining that they disapprove of the ordinance 12-09. In discussions I've had with the clerk and also with some of the delegates, it appears that that action was not taken in public session. And also I've noticed that the letter was signed by Commissioner Lyons, who was not at the meeting. So we're going to have to take their word for it that somehow they disapproved of this. But at this point, we can revote this and revote this ordinance. You guys all understand what we're doing? Yes, Leo.
I've not been privy to having done this procedure again, so I'll ask the speaker, what would the actual motion be that you would be looking for in order to re-vote this ordinance?
Well, you know, Leo, the original ordinance passed with considerably more than 2/3 of the vote, so I don't know what significance essentially their veto has. I'm gonna presume that we can re-vote this again. But, so the motion would be for the people for someone to move acceptance of passage of ordinance 12-09.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now, did you have any discussion on this, Leo? Yes.
I do. I want to refer to the letter that we received from the three commissioners, and it's discerning to me that the last statement in the letter is that we believe the changes not to be in the best interest of the management and function of Barnstable County, its citizens, and the local towns. That's a pretty strong statement, and as you said, Mr. Speaker, I personally reviewed the agenda for November 14th. This item was not specifically on the agenda. I then maybe assumed that it was under the kind of quasi-blanket motion of ratifying all the action taken. So I went to the minutes, and that's where I discovered that on the meeting of the 14th, only 2 members were present, Mr. Doherty and Mr. Flynn. Ms. Lyons was absent. There is an actual action taken of the Board of Commissioners to ratify or reaffirm some actions. There are a total of 19 actions that are specifically laid out. I won't go through all of them. I've read it at least 4 times, and I have not found any one of those 19 to be the movement of the signing of this letter, especially with such a strong statement is that we believe these changes not to be in the best interest of the management and function of Barnstable County. I'll further go on to say that the meeting was adjourned at 1:56 with a vote of 2-0. Motion was made by Mr. Doherty, and Ms. Flynn voted, so that's your 2-0. So at the end of the meeting at 1:56, Ms. Lyons was not present. Yet the letter that we have got sent to us was approved on November 14th, and it's actually timed at 2:40 in the afternoon. So sometimes between, what did I say before you? Yeah, thank you. The adjournment at 1:56, which is close to 2 o'clock, and 2:40, this action was taken. I think that we should ask, you know, was there some discussion? Or is this the way business has been done? With that said, and strictly speaking on the motion itself, I want to remind everyone that on November 7th, and we did in fact just vote in our journal for November 7th, on page 5, I specifically asked the commissioners, and at that time only Ms. Flynn and Ms. Lyons were present, what their feelings were on my resolution of 1206, which stated kind of in a blanket way the reconstructing of the positions. And I just want to remind you that, and I quote, Ms. Flynn stated, yes, we are very much aware of that. We are basically very much in support of those recommendations regarding the restructuring because they involve individuals who already hold a position. She goes on to say, and as chair, I am meeting with some of those involved to get their responses and their concerns about this. But in the end, I believe this is the direction that we are going, and I think the commissioners are in support of that. Ms. Lyons goes on to say, and that is really in regards to the Director of Finance, internal reconstruction. And I really do look at these as human resource issues. I won't go on to read any more, but I just want to remind everybody at that November 7th meeting that I felt that the commissioners were at least open-minded to our first suggestions in the resolution, and that kind of certainly helped me make the decision to support the ordinance 12-09. I'm really bothered by the fact that how this letter was generated, number one, and number two, how such a major function and request from us can simply be passed off as not even being considered to be dealt with in a public forum. With that said, I strongly support our revote of this ordinance. I do believe that any organization such as ours that has a $20 million plus budget should certainly have two individuals, a finance director and a administrator. Thank you. So with that, not only will I vote to support this, but I would hope that we take some action to find out how this vote was taking on the generation of this letter.
Okay. Yes, Teresa?
I'm not quite sure if this is the right time to ask this, but I was curious on how this differed from what was in the charter already, and I have in front of me the from the charter, which sets up a Department of Finance that clearly defines a separate person with specific roles. And so I'm just kind of confused, I guess. If we have this set up already, why do we need another ordinance to make it happen? Or it just feels kind of weird. I mean, I can read it so that it's just short if you'd like, so everyone
I looked
might hear it.
if I can just, I looked in here, and this is my personal opinion now, because I haven't passed on this with the attorney for Barnstable County, but the charter sets that we have to have a treasurer, and we have to have a finance department. I don't know that it says they have to. In other words, the commissioners are saying they don't have to be, it just has to be a different person.
Well, no, but it says that there shall be a Department of Finance which shall be headed by a Director of Finance who shall be a person especially fitted for it by education, blah, blah, blah. And then they outline on the specific duties of the Director of Finance. And in a separate paragraph, it outlines the specific duties of an administrator. It doesn't say explicitly these must be two unique individuals, but they're clearly defined as two separate job roles.
I agree, I absolutely agree with you there. Yes.
Showing my age, I'll give a little historical background, which I think you know, but originally Mark was hired as Director of Finance. We had a different person who was the administrator. He left, or was fired. At any rate, we parted ways with that administrator, and as an economy measure, Mark was appointed to the additional administrative position. And so since then, he has held the two jobs. I voted for the original motion because I wanted to remind the commissioners that we feel strongly that it's now time to have two different people in this job. As much because we want an administrator to be doing more things and have a wider role in the county as a leader than, in my case, dissatisfaction with Mark as a finance director. I think he does understand that well and has done it well, but I think it takes up X amount of time and doesn't leave enough time. At any rate, I did have a conversation with a commissioner where I got the impression, I didn't know about, it was before I saw this actual not very exciting response from the commissioners, but it's my impression that when you quoted Sheila as saying this is a human resources issue, I think that's probably what's being worked out now. I'm assuming that they are on board with our concept of two people, and that I'm just saying what I think is the case. It's not related to that letter. I think they are on board with what we want, and that is going to happen. I suspect it will happen as part of the new budget. I suspect it'll happen in January. And so I don't think we've got a horrible situation, but I think it's fine to vote again to say, we really mean this, and we really think are encouraging you along these lines. But I think it's underway.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever they may be doing, thinking about doing, what the commissioners may be doing in their personnel function or whatever, I think this is sort of like a slap in our face, and I think we ought to override their veto just as a matter of principle. And I really think we ought to ask them when they met about it, where the record of that meeting is, who debated it, and who voted for this.
Leo?
I would have agreed to let this go if this letter had stated that, thank you for your vote, we are looking into this matter, and we are in fact going to be restructuring the government, as you suggested, not only in an ordinance but in a resolution. But that's not what I can act on. Whether I believe that's what they're going to do or not is irrelevant, because we have in writing a real simple statement. We believe these changes to be in the best interest of the management and function of Barnstable County. And that statement alone, I think, is pretty strong. They can't fall back on the fact, and I didn't bother reading it in the minutes, how it has been said numerous times in front of us, that there's an election going on and there's certain things that have to be put on the table because we have to wait to see who's going to win. Well, we know who's won now. It's time to move forward. I agree with a couple of my other colleagues. I think this needs to be voted again, and I'm hoping it's voted unanimously, because it's something that needs to be done and it needs to move forward.
Okay. Yeah, Chris?
I would just like to be real short and just request that anyone who had misgivings about it before, I would request that they vote for it now.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to say that we put this on the agenda because we felt that it was consistent with the recommendations of the MMA report, which I think we tossed around $100,000 or something to look at, and it was consistent with the recommendations of the Special Commission on County Governance, and the commissioners had not acted on it. There were various excuses, and after a while, we can sit here and say, well, it's the commissioners are not acting, but in a sense, it reflects on all of Barnstable County government if we don't move forward with this. It's like the federal government. You can blame the House, you can blame the President, but a lot of people say, hey, the government isn't functioning. And it comes to a point when things don't get done, it's going to reflect on all of us. So I thought that it was as I don't say a shot across their bow, but it's a sense that we are on board with this change and that we feel it should be implemented. And it's pretty straightforward. So, well, if there's no other, I guess we'll take a vote.
Richard Anderson,
Yes.
Cheryl Andrews,
Yes.
Ronald Bergstrom,
Yes.
Leo Kukunis,
Twice.
Christopher Kanega,
Yes.
James Killian,
Yes.
Marcia King,
Yes.
Teresa Martin,
Yes.
Deborah McCutcheon,
Yes.
Spiro Mitrakostas,
Yes.
John Ullman,
Yes.
Patrick Princey,
Yes.
Anthony Scalise,
Yes.
Julia Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, the revote of ordinance 12-09 passes with 98.73% of the delegates present voting yes, and 1.27% are absent.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that the Assembly direct the clerk of the Assembly to please write a letter to the Board of Commissioners asking them when they had a meeting on this letter, what minutes they have of that meeting, and if they took any votes, what records they have of that
Okay,
meeting.
well, I'm going to rule that request is consistent with the item posted on the agenda so that we can do that. So,
I'll second that motion.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll write them. We could have done this anyway, but I'm glad I have your support. Okay. We now have a report from the clerk.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just a few items to report on. First, I'm not sure what we're going to have for committee meetings next assembly meeting, which is December 19th, but I will apprise you of whatever meetings are scheduled. Our holiday gathering is still on track for the 19th, and I've heard from the majority of people. There are still a few that have not committed, so I would appreciate it if you'd see me after the meeting and let me know, if possible, if you're going to be attending. There is also a very important letter in everyone's folder this evening with regards to filing of your statement of financial interest for calendar year 2012. So I will be supplying the people at the state with the necessary information as the liaison for the assembly, and you also need to take notice that I think you've got 60 days. I have to notify you within 60 days of notice from the state, which I am doing, but I think you have to complete it by May. But the date is in the letter, so I'm just letting you know that I am going to tell them that I delivered the letter to you by hand, because they actually make me report how I literally give you that letter, mail or by hand. So this is it. You got it.
I can just jump in and say that whenever they set a deadline ways in the future, it always catches you, because you look at it and say, oh my God, May, might as well be next year, and the next thing you know, it's June, and they're writing a nasty letter. Anything else?
Yes. And also with regards to mileage, anyone who anticipates a possibility of not being in attendance on the 19th, I would appreciate it if you could sign your reimbursement tonight. I do have them, so see me after the meeting, because if not, it's going to delay it until January. And also get back to me as soon as you can with regards to committee assignments for the new session. And I'm putting together a spreadsheet for the speaker to look at with regards to your preferences and requests. And other than that, that's it.
Mr. Speaker? Yep. Leo?
Are we supposed to hand you back the choice of dinner thing, circle what we want, or is this...
No, Leo, I'm sorry, I should have clarified that. I believe you get to make your choice when you get there.
Okay.
If not, I'll let you know, but you're going to have a choice of those 4 items.
So if it's been a storm for 10 days, don't order the fish.
I mean, it looked like something we were supposed to circle, you know.
Anything else? Okay, so that's it. Is there any other business to be brought before the assembly?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So Dennis is going to get the second one.